Welcome. Today we're going to do a slab vase. So we have our slab. I'm going to do this vase here. You're going to put it down on the clay. You're going to put a little marker. Just use a little bit of slip for this to show where one corner is. At the same time, make a little notch to show where you started. And you're just going to, whoops, sorry, here I got it the wrong way. So there's that. Keep in mind it's going to roll in the way of the smaller direction. So I'm going to spin it around. I'm going to mark where that little piece of clay is. Mark where this little piece of clay is. I'm going to spin it around. And then where this piece ends, I'm going to give it just a little bit more, about half a centimeter's worth more. And that gives us our tracks as to exactly where we're going. So I'm going to cut this out. And because I'm going to be doing this a little bit different, I need a little bit more room on top. I don't have a ruler with me right now, so I'm just going to use a tool to improvise the edging. It's not going to work. I'm actually going to use the edge of my case here. That's one side. Okay, so that's what's going to cover this. As you'll note, I did come an angle this way and on this one. This one's probably going to need the exact same angle on this way as well, but we're going to do that a little bit later. You're going to find something that's a little bit bigger in your base. This bowl happens to work for this. There's a section right about here, it's going to work nicely. Put a piece of plastic over it. If we just keep angling it. We then have our circle. It didn't cut all the way through because it wasn't a very good bowl there for an edge. So we're just going to trace it out. And there's this. Okay, and there's our base. So I'm going to turn this upside down. Ideally, I'd want a board. I don't have one here at the second, so we're just going to do it this way. You're going to take a bag. Any bag will work, grocery bag, just something so the clay can't stick to the vase. You're going to take it, you're just going to tuck it in. If you want, you could use tape and stuff to secure it. You just want something that you can pull out of later. You can sometimes use baby powder. It's not always the most effective though, so you have to watch that. Put this out of the way. We're going to put this in our bag. Okay, so here's our piece. So, turn this upside down. It's more stable this way. So, our other issue is that the plastic bag's going to want to blow up. Use your sharp, poke a hole in it, let the air out. So even though I added that extra centimeter or two, it still's a bit tight. So I'm just gonna keep weaseling it together until it's a little bit closer. Also, you notice that it's sinking down, so it's actually not quite the same diameter anyhow. So it is there. So use some slip. Put lots of slip along the edge. This is a little bit runnier of a slip than what I prefer to use. Ideally, I should have made it a little bit wider and just trimmed it back. Just going to put it on its side for the second here, just to do this step. You're going to pinch your edges together. Because this one's kind of tight, I'm also going to do it like this, just to make sure I get some very good, almost like stitches into the clay. Very carefully. So I'm going to put it this way, it's going to put pressure on that joint. So you have to watch them, so you're very careful. So see, this one's a little bit tight and it doesn't want to go all the way down. That's fine. Just be carefully tap it. You already use a flat surface when you're tapping something like this, just so it's an even pressure. See, the edge is holding. This edge here is trying to crack. Just watch them. You can smooth a lot of this back up in the cleaning stage. I am. This was a 2-stage vase here, so I am just going to press it close against the plastic to try and get that nice little variegated flare into it. Your fingers start to stick, either use magic water or slip or regular water to go ahead and okay. Now for our base. Here it is. I am going to stamp it before I put it on. I think I got my stamps here. Okay, so we're now going to join these. Oh, this, I should have scored the other edge here too, but this one is so... Just to give the slip a little something extra to stick to. You want lots of slips. You don't want coming apart on you when you're doing stuff with it later. Okay. And now, just because this base isn't going to be level like this, we are going to have to turn it upside down. That will keep our base flat. And now if you want, you can either smooth it. If you had a water piece, you could make this neat little lip along the bottom. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and smooth it over slightly. If I angle it sideways, it will actually dent the bottom and the back, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of like this. If you get really big dips, you can get a little bit more clay and just smooth it out and add it in. This is a pretty big dip right here, but that's kind of where one of our lines were. A little bit of slip, add it in. And just massage it in until all the edges are joined and basically invisible. And there, our hole's gone, there's not even a lump. If you're going to pick it up, be very careful. It's not going to like being moved much at this stage. Just going to do the edges there a little bit. I'm using the back of my nail to do the striations. It's basically just joining the two. If there's any kind of cracks, as you can see, there's kind of one right there. This is a result just being the slab being rolled with the stresses. Just go ahead, massage it away, fill it in. As you can see, there's a little more here. So you see about how much of these stress cracks here? This is a result of the slab being a little bit drier than what it should have been when I was rolling it out and moving it around. The drier the slab, when you bend it, the more it's going to crack. Just think of a piece of bread. If it's really dry, it's going to crack. If it's soft, it's going to take the pressures. Just go ahead, do a little bit of slip, massage it in. Hole's a little bit bigger. Get another piece of clay. So I got slip there, so I don't need to put any slip on it. Just massage it in. A little bit more slip. You can see here at our seam again. You can't really see at the bottom because of all the stuff I've done. You can see it higher up. Once again, just keep going. There's a little bit of a dip here. So I'm going to get a little bit of clay. Stretch it out. I'm not sure if you can see it where it is there, but it's that kind of that dip there. You can see it there. So get a piece of clay, spread it out. Get a nice helping of slip on the back. I'm just going to massage it into there. This will also act as a band-aid over the cracks. You can see it is trying to separate here. This will also give it a little bit more stability as it dries. Fingers are getting a little bit dirty here. My edges here are trying to flare out again, so I'm just going to carefully push them back against the vase. You can see as I push back, this little bit here is trying to ooze out just because of what was parting. I'm just going to try and put it back in its place. So there we go. Looks like our seam is mostly gone now. The upper edges you're really better off leaving until the cleaning stage to fix, because right now the clay is vertical, our clay is quite heavy, so it's going to be protesting a fair bit with the pressures I've put it underneath. I'm just going to use the edge of the stamp here as flat. You can use anything that's kind of flat, but it kind of just helps you get this little bit of an edge on it. Just to make sure that it's square, because this edge here was kind of flare out on me. And I've got another dip here, we're a little bit shy of material. Once again, another piece. Dip it and slip. Put it back on. Make sure it sticks. If you got fingernails, just make sure you don't gouge your pieces as you're working on them. You can very carefully pick it up and do it as well. Just be very careful because it will put angle stresses on this. And if your seam isn't well done or has any weak points, you will run into issues there. And to fix that little piece I nail gouged. When your piece is wet, you can sometimes do more damage actually tidying up than you can when cleaning. There you go. See, it's still a little bit of an edge there. I'm just going to wipe it out. Okay. So, as you noticed, I build on the outside of the vase. You usually don't do this because our clay shrinks 20%. So I'm going to take this guy home, and because he's so tight, I'm probably going to pull this vase out tomorrow, later tonight. So I will take a video of that when I do that. So I will see you back then for that stage. Actually, I forgot. I was going to put some decoration on here. So I left this one quite smooth, so I kind of like that look for a vase. I got a cookie cutter. And I've got some of the clay we saved. Once again, you can just use a cookie cutter if you want, but sometimes it sticks a bit. If you use a piece of plastic, you can see this. When I pull it out, it gives you these nice rounded edges. If you're after straight bulky edges, that's fine. Don't use the plastic. If you don't mind this nice, easy look, then you can go ahead and do it. It's completely personal preference. Okay, pick the spot that you want it. Try not to put over your seam, because if you're going to have any cleanup to do, it's going to probably be on or around your seam. And where was my seam? It's a very good question. Where was my seam? Ah, my seam was over here. I can see at the top there where some of the pieces weren't meeting. Okay, so let's do it on this side. Okay, here's our piece. Just because this one is so smooth, I am going to score the back of it. Get something to stick to. Okay. You can do flowers, branches, whatever you prefer doing. I'm just going to find the tool here. Because it's round, sometimes the edges don't quite go flat. I'm just going to use a tool here and push them flat. Go very gently, very smoothly. You don't want to have too much to clean up when you're done. Once again, be very careful when picking it up. I could feel the piece shifting. It's still not straight enough for me to take the piece out of. Of course, we just finished doing it a few seconds ago. This also gives me a chance to clean up any of the slip that overflows. So I will see you later tonight when we come to take the vase out of here. Okay, we're back. It's been a couple of hours, and I also used the hair dryer on this to kind of harden up a little bit. It is still kind of damp, but it has stiffened up a bit. So we're going to unfold the plastic that we tucked in. You can't pull the plastic out. It's not going to work that way. You have to instead go in and try and get a grip on the vase and just lift it out. Now, take your plastic. Some of it might be in your seam, wherever your seam is, so kind of carefully pull it back. And as you can see, I can find my seam here. My bag's a little bit stuck. Just go gently, slowly, gently. And there we go. It is very delicate right now, so be very careful. Your seam inside, you're going to want to try and tack up. Go inside, seal it a bit. As I mentioned, support the back. Be very careful as you go in here and do this. Don't go too rough, just enough to seal it over. If you can't get in far enough, use a tool. Any tool works, as long as it can smooth over your edges. It's also advisable is to use slip. A slip. It also helps your tools slide easier so you don't do too much in the way of getting too rough or too much chaffing. We really can't do much on the inside just because the outside is so delicate right now. So we're just better off leaving until next week. Your outside was very firmly done, so that's what gives it most of its strength. If you want to seal your inside bottom seam a little bit, you can go ahead and do that as well. It shouldn't need too much if you thoroughly seal it on the other side and use a fair bit of slip. If there's slip inside, just use that to spread it around. It'll form a nice seal. Or you can add a little bit more and just keep going. If you can get your hands in, that's great. Just make sure you don't do too much damage to the rest of the pot. Okay. It's about the best I can do for now. The rest of it really has to wait until we go ahead and clean it. So I will leave it at that, and I will come find you next week. Okay, welcome back to our vase. It's been drying a week, so now it's actually semi-hard. I can handle it quite well. So now we're going to go ahead and clean it up. Many of your rough pieces you're going to smooth out with the sponge. You are going to want to trim some of the rough edges off your base. Trim anything up around the decorations. Make sure that there's no rough places. Also check your seam in case there is any cracking. I'm lucky this one didn't have much except for a tiny crack way up in there that I'm not too worried about. If there is cracking, use the back of your nail and smooth it over a little bit more. Use a little bit more slip, maybe a little bit of clay to seal it over. And that should do it fairly well. Try and squeeze it out so there's not much water. Otherwise it can get a little too wet and that could weaken the clay. You seem to have a little black speck there. I'm just going to try and dig it out. Oh, it's actually a rock. Look at that. So that was a rock. Watch out for those. Those will blow in the kiln. And now we got a hole that we have to fill. So I got a little bit of the harder slip. Just going to put that there. Wipe off the excess. And there we go. The hole is filled. You might need tools to get into some of the spots to clean. So your top, if I had a ruler, I could stretch it across and just grade it across to make things even. I don't think I have a ruler, but I do have this. Just helps you find whatever's uneven and you turn it on to the side so you can take a look at it. Figure out what sides need to come down a bit more. There are some boards around with like sandpaper or wire where you can actually take the vase upside down and spin it on it and it would actually level it for you. Spinning it like this will also rub your higher places so you can see which ones are high and need to come down. But you can also just eye it up. This one's actually pretty even. So you also bring your head down about level with it. You can see what's high and what needs to come down. Just make sure that there's no rough edges. Run your fingers along. If there's a rough edge, smooth it out with the sponge, because those will be capable of cutting, sorry. A couple of gouges for my nails. I'm just giving it a firm brushing to get rid of any little, some of the smaller bumps and lumps and imperfections. You might get a few dips that you might need to add some slip to, just to level them out. Just fill them in and let them dry for a bit. So as you can see, there's that smooth surface compared to what the rough had looked like earlier. When you're doing this, it's better to use magic water or water from one of the mud tubs. Just because it's got the minerals in it, it's going to help keep it from cracking, because we found the chlorine's causing some problems with cracking lately. Just also be careful with it because you don't want it to crack when you're putting too much pressure on. Use the back of your nail for some of the smaller holes or some of the small seams. Just kind of ease them out of there. couple of ridges there. I'm just kind of easing them out. Sometimes you get lots of beer dips. You can use a tool, get it a little bit wet first, and it will actually ease over and just kind of smooth some of the bumps out. And you can sponge them a little bit better. That's the outside. This is the inside. You can either do lots or a little depending on how much cleaning you want to do. You'll probably end up using tools to get into some of these spots just because most of the time it's a little hard for your hands to get in without possibly breaking something. Okay. Tap it upside down, get some of those sprinkles out from earlier. Okay. That's actually pretty good for what I was after. Now let's do the bottom. Do the edging here. You may end up using a tool to trim it and get it level. You just don't want any really sharp edges. Test it with your finger. If it's good for your finger, then you're usually pretty good. Okay. Let that dry for a second. So there. That is our vase. Also let it dry for another couple of weeks and it can go and get fired.